Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about what the Denver Nuggets should do going into the offseason after a brutal 7 game series against the Minnesota Timberwolves, in which they ultimately choked in a game 7. So, to start off, let's start off with the worries about the team. Now, I think what's very clear is the bench and the lackluster ability that the bench played, especially in the playoffs. The fans saw it in the regular season what the bench did and didn't do, and what the clear, obvious holes were in the roster, right? By net ranking, net worth, whatever, or net ranking, not net worth, but by net ranking and plus minus, we have ultimately the best, or if not one of the best, starting lineups in the league. So I do not think that is one to worry. But I will say that with the possibility of Contavious Caldwell Pope leaving, this does leave some roster spots open. Now, I think the player option that KCP could get is very doable for the Nuggets. But as of right now, I think it may be a 50-50 percentage that KCP does leave. So before we get into that whole spiel about KCP, let's talk about the bench, right? So with free agency and trades, some players that I would have in mind to potentially fill the bench and kind of reload the bench are guys such as DeLon Wright, Mason Plumlee, and potentially Andre Drummond. Right after this year, it's kind of I just don't think we can get away with not having a backup big, and by big I mean a center, not Aaron Gordon playing extra minutes. And I would love out of those three options, or I guess between the two options of the bigs, I'd rather see Andre Drummond on the team. But something when it comes to the guards, to see replacement maybe for Reggie Jackson, I think probably needs to go. So for that, I'd love to see DeLon Wright and maybe even a Gary Harris reunion. I mean, I've seen some other speculations of Josh Giddey or Chris Paul, but I just don't think those are possibilities at the time. So for vets, I'm gonna say DeLon Wright and Gary Harris. I'd like to see for the bench for the guards, and for the bigs, maybe get Zeke Naji and Reg, maybe for get those guys out and try to, if you're getting get veterans, you don't get something in the draft. I would like to see either a reunion of Mason Plumlee or Andre Drummond. And Andre Drummond would especially help with those rebounding issues we saw in the playoffs. And now to go along with that bench, obviously we'd like to see Christian Brown and Peyton Watson still there. And actually, Peyton Watson needs to take a bigger leap, I think, this year than what CB needs to do. CB did have his moments in the playoffs where he looked great, and throughout the regular season, CB had moments where he just didn't look great. And I don't know the situation about Justin Holiday, how that's going to hold up. There were some really good moments, especially regular season game against the Lakers, some games against the T Wolves, and then there was just really really dull moments for Justin. So we'll have to see how that situation plays out as well. And another one we're coming on to the bench topic is DeAndre Jordan. Now I don't see DeAndre Jordan as a backup big. I see him as the vet who kind of keeps the chemistry around. So I want DJ to stay for that aspect. The chemistry. I still think we are the best team ultimately in the NBA, especially if we get this reloaded bench. So I think that chemistry part is even as important, especially for guys such as KCP staying. Having DJ stay would be really good. So now let's go on to a trade. Now rather than a free agency signing, or either or, but that's also Chris Dunn. I think Chris Dunn's an interesting player for the Nuggets to get, especially with his playmaking abilities off the bench. Because as we're seeing, I think Bruce Brown is not an option for the Nuggets this year. I just don't. I think, as a Bleacher Report mock had us trading Bruce Brown, or sorry, we received Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk, and we trade MPJ and some picks. Just, I think that's blasphemous personally. But Chris Dunn, I think, would be pretty good. So now let's move on to our starters. Now here's the starting situation, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna look at our roster as it is right here. So Vlaco, we have Gillespie, all these guys, right? Braxton Keys, Ignazi potentially traded, and then we have guys like Hunter Tyson, Julian Strother, supposed to be part of Project Dynasty. Don't know if Hunter Tyson's someone you want to trade or develop. Not sure. I think Calvin Booth wants Strother to become, kind of get slowly put into the lineup next year, kind of like Peyton Watson. But let's talk about this man right here, Contavious Caldwell Pope, going into a guy who held opponents to 40% while they're guarded, averaged 10 points, field goal percentage 46%, 3-point percentage is great defender, and honestly one of the most important pieces on our team in my opinion. Because beforehand, when we had Will Barton, it was clearly obvious that we needed an upgrade at shooting guard position, and KCP was the best thing I think we could have got. So when it comes to KCP, I do think it's a 50-50. I genuinely believe that, but I would hope he would stay. Now, in the rare situation, or I guess almost situation, because I think it's 50-50 or closer to 50-50 than some fans and some media outlets may think it is, what are the options for that? So some options I can see for that is, get Christian Brown in the lab shooting threes, and I think he's going to become the starting two if Contavious decides to leave. Another thing we could do is try to trade for Bogdan Bogdanovic. And I do like this idea. Even if KCP does stay, I don't know how possible that is, but if he leaves, we could get Zignazi, Reggie, and maybe a pick for Bogdanovic and send him over to Denver. One, that helps because he's a great shooter. He's overall a great player, and he also has that Serbian connection for Jokic, which we know Vlaco is kind of that Balkan teammate that Jokic kind of wants on the team. So that's kind of a idea if KCP does decide to leave, or even if he doesn't. May not be as likely or possible, but that's an option. Another option for the starting lineup that doesn't revolve around KCP is a trade that Bleacher Report cooked up. Now, this is not the Bruce Brown one, but this is one in which Lauri Markkanen comes over to Denver. And here's the trade details. Utah Jazz receive MPJ, the 28th pick this year, and then swaps and 26, 28, 20, 30, second round picks in 25, 26, and 29. Now, I've been in between this, if I would really like this trade, but what I think kind of Nuggets fans and a lot of the media sees out of MPJ is his inability to pass, and sometimes they get irritated at his defense. And Lauri Markkanen's a pretty good defender, good shot blocker, and I feel like he'd basically just be MPJ, so that's where I don't see this trade can make too much sense, especially all the future picks we're giving up. But then when you think about the differences in Calvin Booth and Michael Malone's coaching styles, that Michael Malone just hates having young players, and especially putting them in the lineup. And the rare occasion, Christian Brown and now Peyton Watson. But Peyton Watson, as we see, was not out there on the T-Wolves series because of his shooting struggles. So this trade I'm not sure about, but I do still think this is an option, especially considering getting rid of all these picks. And if Michael Malone really is our long-term head coach, this would kind of eliminate this idea of having to keep stacking the roster full of young talent, which he ultimately probably won't place, and that we get Lauri, which is ultimately a better version of MPJ, slightly better version in different aspects. But then again, MPJ is, I just don't see a need to trade for him. But Calvin Booth, we'll have to see if he has something along these lines. So now when it comes to the draft, right? So for the draft, here are two options that I would like and hope to see. Bleacher Report or some has us taking the 28 pick. They have us taking Johnny Furphy. I don't know, I typed killing Furphy. But Johnny Furphy from Kansas, a good shooter. He's a freshman, 6'9". Another Kansas guard forward. I don't know why I typed killing, but Johnny Furphy. Um, I didn't really see too much of his game in the early season, but I saw his game in March Madness and like games in like February, March. But he seems like a pretty good shooter from what I've seen. He's got these awards here: freshman, Big 12 All Freshman Team, All Big 12 honorable mention, and I wouldn't see as a bad option. He'd be a good shooter, but what I would like to see is either Tristan Newton for that guard depth, for and Reggie leaving ultimately, because he could become our backup point guard. He's 23, right? NBA ready, and then Deron Holmes if we don't get Andre Drummond. This guy's 21, an absolute beast, and the guy can rebound, he can defend. He's 6'10", 235. When it comes to the draft, these two guys are who I want to see. No offense to Johnny Murphy, or as I called him, Killian Furphy, but Johnny Furphy, I wouldn't be mad at it, but I would love Deron Holmes and Tristan Newton to be the guys that Calvin Booth kinda centers on, right? So 28th pick could be Deron Holmes. Could be a reach. You never know with Calvin Booth in his draft. The mocks up for the Nuggets are usually not too right, especially during the Calvin Booth era, I should say. So for the draft class, that's kind of what I have for the Nuggets. And overall, those are kind of my thoughts on what the Denver Nuggets need to do to reload. And honestly, the championship window is now. So to gear up for another championship next year. So those are kind of my ideas, and let me know if Nuggets fans agree, and make sure to like the video.